Welcome to the Kratom Sobriety podcast. This is Charlie. We're at episode 174. And today we have a new co-host that I'm going to be introducing, Rosa, who appeared on episode 54 in March of 2024. How are you doing, Rosa?
I'm good. It was episode 54, but I used the alias Sofia, and now I've come out as my real person. I'm Rosa.
And today we're going to have an interview that Natalie did with Stewart, and he's got over a year or more off of kratom, so that should be a really solid interview. So what's been going on with you, Rosa, since you last appeared on our podcast?
I actually relapsed after that. I'm not sure how long after, but eventually, I don't think it was too long. I relapsed and got sober again. And the second time was much harder. It was really tough. I definitely felt that kind of physical addiction more the second time, and it came on pretty hard and fast and strong. But today, I look back, I actually have 399 days today off kratom. So 13 months. Tomorrow will be 400 days. Well, that's great. Yeah, nice to be able to say that. Feels good, and I do feel in a better place. Yeah.
Thanks. One of the three folks that we're onboarding, some new hosts, you, Jazz, and Natalie. So thank you very much. And just so that you don't feel alone, relapse is very common. I think it's common with all addiction, but it's also common with kratom. And I just informally, I think just back the napkin numbers, I think up to 40% of some of our past guests have relapsed. The good news is most of them have trying to abstain and doing some kind of recovery program. So it's not like a permanent, you're stuck on kratom forever. So it's a hard balance where we don't want to normalize relapsing and give people like this permission structure to go out and buy a bunch of extracts or whatever your choice is. But at the same time, we don't want to say it's like this major disaster and it's the ruin of your life either.
And so importantly, that you can come back from it. Relapse doesn't mean it's over. It's just, what they say in the program, like relapse is part of recovery. So,
Yeah. You're more than welcome and it's very appreciated. But why are you want to be part of the Kratom Sobriety podcast?
this podcast was just really meant a lot to me when I first got sober. And I think, like a lot of people, there's more out there now. But when I first got off kratom, a lot of people have this experience. Is like nobody knows what kratom is, and a lot of people don't take it seriously. And it was lonely. And I was, wow, something's really deeply wrong with me. And is it in my head? And when I found the podcast, it was just so validating, and I really felt less alone. It was just so significant in my recovery. And when I did quit, just binge listening to the podcast was incredibly helpful. And so being able to be a part of this podcast is, yeah, it's just really meaningful to me. I think it makes a difference for people in with a substance that can just be so isolating. And a lot of people just don't understand. To have this podcast out here, it's just life changing when you feel like there's people that get what you're going through. And you can hear these stories of hope and also hear stories of suffering so you don't feel so alone in your suffering.
Yeah. So thank you with the new folks that are helping us out with the podcast. We're going to be able to keep with the weekly schedule. I put it out there. Maybe we'd be going to a monthly kind of calendar, but we have enough person power now to keep churning out the episodes every week. And we're also going to be able to maybe make some headway into our backlog of inquiries, people that want to be guests. Right now, we're people that signed up in August. So we're about 3 months behind on our list of people who want to be on. So we're hoping we're going to be able to get through that list a little bit quicker. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, so glad to be here.
Yeah. And yeah, when I first started, I thought that there was only the Reddit. But since then, now there's like meetings 3 times a day. There's a bunch of chat groups on Signal and WhatsApp. And there's this podcast and some YouTube channels. And we're making some headway there. It's not as isolating as it was back when we both first started a couple of years ago.
Yeah, for sure. And for not for better or for worse, more people are also starting to hear about kratom There's all these extracts out there. It's starting to be a bigger problem. And I'm starting to hear about it outside of even the kratom world.
And then on top of that, and there's a 7OH explosion, which is accelerating things as well. I'm so grateful to have you on board, and I'm looking forward to your first interview in a couple of weeks. And I think that's a good spot to go to the interview that Natalie did with Stewart. Thank
Sounds
you.
great. Thanks so much, Charlie.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of the Kratom Sobriety podcast. My name is Natalie and I'm here with Stewart. And he's going to tell us a little bit about his story. He has, in 3 days, he'll have a whole year of sobriety off Kratom.
Hi, Natalie. Yeah, my name is Stewart, and I live in Mesa, Arizona. I'm married. I have 3 kids. I've been married to my wife for 14 years. So my oldest kid is 12, and then I've got a 9-year-old and then a 6-year-old. So we've got a lot going on. I'm in a household full of girls, so I've got 3 daughters and my wife, and we even have a dog. Our dog is a girl, of course. I'm a self-employed handyman, and I've been doing like some type of variation of that for the past 11 years, I guess, at this point. One other thing about myself, I'm a Christian, and I'm 35, almost 36 years old.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You have a lot going on, a big family, beautiful family, wife. And for those that don't know, I met Stewart through the group There Is a Way Out Quitting Kratom Support. He's been a bright light in that community. And we just love seeing all your updates with your kids and you living life free and sober. Can you share maybe a couple things that bring you joy and stuff that helps you relax in your free time?
Yes, of course. Some things that I love to do, especially in sobriety now, and I guess before, like my whole experience with Kratom has always been running, like exercise, fitness. Grew up playing soccer and then got into track and cross country in high school and college. And then I had the whole Kratom years. But since I've gotten into sobriety, like something that really, I guess, helps me relax and helps me feel a little bit more peace and joy in my life is being able to spend some time just on my own out in the desert. I live in the desert in Arizona. So I go out there and I just run around on the trails and get to spend some quiet time. I wish I could do that every day, but my body at this point in my life, I can't go out and run every day. I have to recover, but I get to do that at least a few times a week. And on my off days, I still just like to get up early and spend a little bit of time in the peace and quiet of my home before the kids wake up. Yeah, those are the main things that I like to do to relax. It brings me a lot of joy to go out there and to do that.
I love that. I really look up to you for getting up early in the morning and you have that peace. And some days you go on a run. And so you're very active. And I was just thinking about Arizona this morning. It's so beautiful out there. And I would love to go back and visit. So I'm sure you get some good little runs out there in the desert. I know people probably in the desert want to live like out here where I live, where there's tons of trees and forestry. But I guess it's good to enjoy both when you can. But thank you for
Yes.
sharing all that with us. I love those hobbies that you have. So what is your actual Kratom quit date?
November 14th, 2024 is my quit date.
Congratulations. So in 3 days, you'll have a year free, which is amazing.
Yes. Yeah. Super excited for that.
Can you take us back to your first encounter with Kratom? Like what led you to try it in the first place?
I used Kratom for a long period of time, so I might have my dates wrong. It's hard to think back 10 or 11 years, but I believe it was 2013, either the end of that or maybe the beginning of 2014. I was in college at the time. I was in cross country, and I was also in the off season. I would do races like half marathons or half Ironmans, things like that. And one of my buddies who's on the cross country team was like, "Hey, let's sign up for this race." It's called the Xterra World Championship. It's like a trail run that's a half marathon, just in Kualoa Ranch. Super beautiful scenic area, like Jurassic Park is filmed there and stuff like that. we had this thing going on, and I wanted to beat my friend and he wanted to beat me, and I hadn't been like training a lot. And like as far as running went, like I thought to myself, like, I don't even know how, but I don't know if I found something on the internet that was like looking up like a stimulant. What's the type of stimulant that I can use? Because like I would use caffeine and stuff to like for performance enhancement with running and for races, and like I would get big PRs. So I was like, what else can I take? What else is there that's natural? I don't want to go and take street drugs or anything like that, but there's got to be something else. So somehow, like I found a kratom extract or a little bottle similar to what you'd see Feel Freeze. It looked like that, but it wasn't Feel Free. And I found it in a health food store. And so anyways, my first experience with kratom was during my half marathon. I took it, I think probably at the beginning of the race, maybe halfway through. And to be honest, I ran a pretty good race. I was pretty strong all the way through. I felt pretty good and I was really pushing the pace, and my friend was right there with me. And then towards the end, of course, like when you're taking stimulants with endurance races and stuff, like eventually you get dehydrated from a little bit of lack of training and also dehydration from probably too much caffeine and then the kratom. I ended up cramping up at the end and he ended up beating me. So it backfired. But of course, this was in college. So I didn't have the money to spend $10 on a little kratom shot like every day or every few days. So that was a one and done thing. But anyways, I forgot about that experience, but in thinking back, that was my first experience with kratom. And yeah, I did the euphoria and stuff, but I didn't go right back to it. It must have been another year before I like was out of college and had a real job and like really got into kratom.
Okay. Do you have any history, like of any other like substance use?
Yes, I do. I'm an addict, and like my history with substance use, it's interesting because I had like a love-hate relationship. Like from the time I was in high school, I would have these little periods where I was like super healthy and I'd be like really into health and wellness because naturally like that's just who I am. Like I love like fitness. I love like natural foods. Like I spend a lot of time in health food stores and stuff like that. But then I'd kind of get off the rails a little bit and I'd dabble with things like cough medicines, and then I'd dabble with marijuana. Or I think when I was like 18, some way, somehow I got into smoking cigarettes. Like I don't know how looking back on it because that's totally not me at all. But yes, I do have a history. Like in college, I also had like a year where I was taking like Adderall. And of course, it's all like doctor prescribed, but I was mostly taking it like for performance enhancement. I went into those doctor appointments like with the idea of this is what I want. Can I get this? Rather than being like, look, I'm struggling. What can you help me with? That type of perspective. And I definitely abused substances that the doctors would prescribe to me. So I do have not like a super big history with substances because it was very much like I'd have periods, like maybe 3 months where I would like smoke weed every day. And then I'd go 6 months of like complete sobriety and like doing these like nutritional detoxes where I would like do crazy things. I read this book one time about this thing. I think it was called The Grape Cure. And it was like, if you eat nothing but grapes for a month, like you'll detox your body and like you'll be healed of all these things. And so there wasn't very much moderation, right? Whether I was in addiction to a substance or I was like on the opposite end of the spectrum, eating nothing but grapes for 2 weeks. So that was my history when it came to like high school and I guess my early addictions.
That's so funny. I was just reading on TikTok where if you eat beans every day for a month, it's supposed to be life changing. That's something like
Yeah,
I would
yeah,
fall into those things too.
yeah.
But it
When
sounds
I was
like
in
you've
high school, I would have done that for sure.
yeah, it sounds like you've always had been health conscious. So everything you've done has been to help you with your performance or just thinking it was healthy. So it's no surprise that kratom fell into that loop for you. How did it evolve over time? Like, how did it start and then eventually led you to where we are now?
Yeah, again, I think it was in 2014, like, I was finally out of college, and I was just, like, getting into working in construction and stuff, and I remembered that experience, like, taking that kratom, and what really got me with kratom was the fact that it wasn't prescribed by a doctor. The first place I found it was in a health food store, and, of course, I was a sucker for anything that was in a health food store, right? Like, I would try anything. How bad could it really be? So,
Exactly.
anyways, yeah, I found, like, a health food store that sold, like, I don't know, like, a 200-gram bag of the powder, and I was, like, really struggling with just, like, the transition of being an adult and having rent to pay, like, having I think that we were, like, looking at buying a house and stuff like that, and I was, like, learning new trades, like, getting into the working in construction, like, learning drywall, learning texture and all this stuff, and yeah, just I guess just, like, being tired and lacking motivation, I was like, "Let me try this kratom stuff," and I think the first day I tried it, I just had an awesome day, like, I just rocked it. All the things that I was not wanting to do, all of a sudden, I was, like, more than happy to do, and I was, like, doing it well, doing it in a timely manner, nice and clean and professional, so that's what really sold me on it in the beginning, and then just the fact that essentially, I think it's just a leaf, right? So, I was willing, I think, from the beginning to go all into it because it wasn't gonna be a huge financial burden, right? Like, for the amount of money that I was gonna spend on it, like maybe $100 a week, I was gonna more than make up for that in the productivity, right? So, that's how it started out, and it gave me a lot of confidence in my work. It gave me motivation in my work, and obviously, I had a lot of, like, emotional problems that I was, like, really suppressing, and when I would take kratom, that would really help me to suppress that stuff more and live in, like, a less, like, fearful or anxious state. So, that's what really got me going, and again, this was, like, 10 or so years ago, so it's hard to say, "Hey, I started with 100 grams a week and then eventually got to this on this day." Like, I can't really tell you that. Like, all that I know
Yeah.
is probably around 7 or 8 years ago is when I graduated from buying my kratom in smaller bags from health food stores into buying them in half kilos or sometimes 1 kilo at a time from a smoke shop because it was cheaper and I didn't really care at that point whether or not it was organic. Like, I just needed the alkaloids that were in the kratom. And so at that point, I was taking like 80 grams per day, which means that I was taking it just unregulated. I would probably, again, I wasn't monitoring it, but I was probably once every hour just shoveling kratom powder into my mouth and washing it down with water. I'd always have a spoon with me, or if I didn't have a spoon, I'd have a business card in my truck. I'd always have my half kilo hidden somewhere in there. And whenever I'd be lacking motivation or needed more focus at work, I'd go to my truck, I'd take some more. I'd have a little bit of food if I needed food and a little bit of an energy drink. Like, I basically just used kratom and energy drinks as my motivation for work. And it just, it really, I don't think it ever went past that point, but that's quite a bit. Taking 80 grams a day, half kilo a week for at least 7 years of my time taking kratom.
Yeah, I can relate to that a lot. That's exactly my story too. It helps to hear some people that kind of only started really with the powder and that's how my use escalated as well. So it sounds like you just did you ever even try any extracts or I was just
Well,
curious.
that very first one, I think, was an extract, the one that I told you
Right.
about.
I would say I
But
would probably know which one you're talking about, but yes.
yeah, I think maybe once or twice, like I went to the gas station and got an extract, and this kind of feeds into like when I realized it was a problem because sometimes it would be like Saturday night, and I'd be like at the end of my half kilo, and then I'd be like, oh, no problem, I'll get more on Monday morning, like thinking I could go a day like without it and be just fine. It was just Sunday. It was my day of rest. I wasn't going to be working, but I would find myself in a position where I'd have to take an emergency trip to the gas station and I'd grab like one of those extracts. And it didn't do anything for me, to be honest. I don't know if it was because of how much money I spent on it. It'd be like $10. And for the amount of high I got out of $10, like where I could take 80 grams for $10 out of my half-kilo bag, and I could get a lot more high from that. So it just didn't really, it was always like that financial benefit always had to, that was how I justified using it for so long. If I was
Yeah.
going to be taking a bunch of $10 extracts, 8 or 10 of those a day, then I don't think I would have been able to use it for that long.
No.
But I was spending $60 to $70 a week on a half a kilo, and I was taking a lot of kratom. I guess that's what kept me away from extracts and 7-OH and all that other stuff.
I definitely can relate to that. Like, justify it in your head. Like, I'm justifying this because I'm able to be more productive, therefore make more money or do my job better. Of course, until that doesn't work anymore. When was that moment that finally, like, you realized it was a problem and then it pushed you to quit?
Like, I knew it was a problem probably like within the first, like, to be honest, it was probably like within the first month or two of using, but I quickly like put those thoughts in the back of my mind and just kept using anyways. But probably like within 2 years of using is when I think I probably tried to do like my first quit. And I guess from what I remember, I think I probably went like a week without it, and realizing like how difficult it was. It wasn't like just 2 or 3 days of being in some discomfort and then you're all better. I went like a week without it and it was really miserable, right? Like flu-like symptoms, just sweats, zero motivation, and then the depression that followed, the anhedonia that followed, absolutely zero motivation to do anything. And all those feelings early on just led me right back to using, even though I knew it was a problem. But I was like, this is a problem I'm willing to just keep on going with, because I didn't feel like I had any other options. Like, I was so focused on, got to pay the bills, got to make sure my mortgage is paid, make sure that I try and get a little bit ahead, because maybe if I can get enough money in the bank account, then I'll be able to take, I don't know, 2 weeks off or maybe a month off. And then I can like really tackle this addiction. But kratom was going to be my way out, essentially. Like, I would, if I just take more and work more and save up enough money, then maybe I'll get to the point where I can, I don't know, take a whole month off and give myself the time to heal. That was my justification for a long time, just looking for and waiting for that moment. But of course, the kids get older. As they get older, you're no longer just buying diapers. You're also buying all sorts of other things like shoes. You're signing them up for sports. Like, they eat more food. So like, the expenses get bigger, right? So that dream I had of having a savings to where I could take time off and get kratom free, it just never happened. Even though I knew it was a problem, my dream was that I could get off of kratom, but it was like, not now. I can't do it now. There's no way.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned kind of, and it wraps it all into there's just really no perfect time to quit. And I really try to preach that as well, because like you, there had been so many times that I tried to quit, and then we have this delusion in our head that, oh, we're going to wait till create this perfect time. And that never seems to actually come about. So what was your approach? When can you remember, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to quit? And then how did you do it? What was your approach? Tapering, cold turkey, or?
Yeah, I think again, my kids were getting older. There were so many different factors that finally led me to quit in the end. I knew it was a very deep rooted addiction, and I hated that. Again, I'm like a really health conscious guy. Like, I hated the fact that what started out as something innocent, you found it in a health food store, ended up being this. And that always weighed on me. My kids were noticing things, like they would find bags of, they'd get in my truck, my work truck, and then they'd find like my kilo of kratom and they'd read kratom. And then my daughter, who was probably like 10 or 11 at the time, would be like, hey, what's kratom? And that kind of stuff just really pierced me. It hurt. Like, I didn't want to lie to them, but I had to. And yeah, and I knew that God had a way and a plan for me that didn't include kratom. And like, I didn't know what that was, but again, like, I'm a Christian guy. Like, throughout all of this, like, I was going to church every week. even though halfway through church I'd be in the bathroom taking more kratom. But I always had this belief like there's there is a way. God hasn't given up on me. There's a plan. Like He's going to make it all possible. Somehow I'm going to be able to live without having to rely on just like waking up and taking kratom. So that was a big one. My wife's mental health really started to deteriorate just because like I had been struggling with it secretly and alone for so long. She knew about it and she continued to press me on it, and like every time she would talk about it, I would often get argumentative, right? And I'd get defensive. You don't understand. I have to take this. And her dealing with that for so long, like eventually, like her mental health deteriorated. And like naturally, she has a very overactive mind. Like she faces OCD and that type of thinking. That combined with a husband who's gaslighting her and everything like that, like she really started to suffer, and she like needed to reach out for help. But I was like, you can talk to people, but don't tell anybody that I'm taking kratom type of thing. And our marriage was just in a bad place, right? Because of that. So yeah, I was miserable. My wife was miserable, and it wasn't because of any decisions or choices she was making. It was because of the decisions and choices that I was making. And all of that just weighed on me to the point where I guess it just broke me, and I realized I had to get really serious about this. It was only a matter of time before I had teenage girls in the house that they were going to have all their own emotional issues to go along with me and my issues. So there was no way that I was going to be able to continue to manage my life like the way that I was doing it. Oh, and then I guess what I ended up doing a bit of a taper. So again, like at the height of my use, I was using like 80 grams a day. And I had, I think I was like on the Reddit forum every once in a while, just to see what was out there. If I was like one of the extreme cases or if there were other people like me. And some people talked about how going from 80 grams a day to zero was like going to be extremely intense. So if you can get it down a ways, then it's going to be a lot more manageable. So like I did work on that. I think over the period of 6 months, I finally got down to like somewhere between 20 and 30 grams per day. So there was a lot of, I guess, tapering. Like I would, rather than driving around with my half kilo in my truck, like I would wake up in the morning and I would get a little zipper bag and I would put 30 grams in it. I think I probably started at 40 or 50 grams, but I worked my way down. And then, so I knew when I was at work that I could only have so much because I was going to run out. So that's what I did because again, like my use was very much tied to like my work life. So the big thing was making sure that I didn't have that half kilo available for me. And I would try and extend rather than taking it whenever I wanted, I would take it once every 2 hours, and got to the point where I think I had a few days where I took 20 grams and I was like super proud of that. But then I would also try and do like a Saturday and Sunday. I would tell my wife, like, okay, I'm not going to take any kratom this weekend. And that was my goal. And it didn't actually happen, but I got to the point where like I went 12 hours without a dose. And I was torn because I was like really proud of myself. But at the same time, I was very committed to going the whole weekend without kratom. And it just didn't happen. But the reality is that I went the whole weekend with only having 2 doses or maybe 3 doses. But so that was a huge win, like having little victories like that along the way. And then the work week would hit and I'd get back into maybe taking 30 or 40 grams a day. So it was very up and down, but I was working on it really hard. And yeah, I thought about using Matt at one point, but again, like with my history with different substances, I frequently went from one substance to another, and it just didn't seem like the right move for me as much as I like wanted to. And there is a lot of people out there that will talk about how it was really helpful for them, and I'm really glad that it does help people. But for myself, it didn't seem like it was going to be the way. So I was so close to buying gabapectin one day, and the guy was like asking for my credit card number, and I was like, you know what? Never mind, I'm good. So I didn't go that route. And I'm actually really glad that I didn't. So yeah, I went the natural route. I got to the point where I was at, again, probably 30 grams a week. And then I ended up going into a 12-step room. It was called Addiction Recovery Program from my church. It's like Healing Through the Savior. So it's like a very Christ-centered addiction recovery 12-step program. And I found a sponsor in there. And within like a day or two of finding a sponsor, I unexpectedly, like, totally, like, I had probably like not a half kilo, but maybe 200 grams of powder like remaining. Mm. And historically, when I had 200 grams of powder remaining, I would be like, okay, this is the last 200 grams of powder that I'm going to take. After this, I'm not buying any more. I knew that the following day I was going to meet at the park with my new sponsor, and I had never had a sponsor before. And he was like, we're going to work on steps 1, 2, and 3. And I was like, I was very committed and very serious to this because, like, I knew what steps 1, 2, and 3 were. I knew that it ended with surrender, right? So I was really evaluating, okay, what does surrender mean? Surrendering to God. And like, I came to the conclusion, like, how could I possibly show up and do a step 3 with my sponsor, but still have 200 grams of kratom left at home? So I guess the night before I met with him, like, I flushed it all down the toilet. And I think that would have been, I guess, the 13th of November. Yeah, the 14th was like my day one. When we met at the park, and I was like on hour like 20, and I was like extremely going through withdrawal. I was like on a little 1 hour lunch break. But hey, I did steps 1, 2, and 3 with him, and I felt like I was doing it honestly, and I was like surrendered the way that I needed to be surrendered. And I wasn't sure if it was going to work because like I had tried it before, but I had never tried it this way. And that was my last quit. So it worked.
That's awesome. When you talked about like you could just really hear the pain in your voice, just what it was like doing to your family and your wife. And I feel like our stories are really more similar than I actually thought they were. But I'm glad that you met with a sponsor and you started working the steps with them. And that was a Christ centered program that you were talking about on that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like
Awesome.
very much like celebrate recovery.
Okay. Yeah, and you just flushed it all, and the next day, you just finally quit, so that is amazing. So, like, that first month, because I know you're a husband and you're a father, you have a lot going on, you own your own business. So how did you juggle that, like, the first month being off for kratom? How was that for you?
Yeah. I did not. The first month was absolutely just, I managed like absolutely nothing. Like, I would not have been able to do it. Like, without the help of my wife. Like, she was just my cheerleader. She was coaching me the whole way through it. And like, just to see like her eyes, the way that she looked at me, like she would look at me and just, she would be proud. She looked at me in a way that she hadn't looked at me in a very long time. And that like really got me excited. I was like, hey, I'm doing the right thing here. Even though I was completely stuck pretty much horizontal on a couch. If I wasn't out at work, I was at home on the couch and my wife would be in the kitchen making me a very nutritious meal. Like, my wife was very helpful. I feel like she is almost like me going to rehab because she was my caretaker. My kids were so amazingly understanding. They knew that I was sick. They knew that something was wrong with dad, but they were patient. Like, the month leading up to before I quit, like, I was taking my oldest girl to the climbing gym like 3 times a week. We got a new membership. We were super into it, super excited about it. And so we were climbing. She got super into it. But of course, the month of my quit, we didn't go one time. And she didn't complain about it once. Like, she knew that I needed rest. Like, she didn't know the details of everything, but she was patient. My wife was really patient. I did have to work. Yeah. And that was one of the big factors of why I didn't really want to quit. And I really surprised myself by flushing it down the toilet when I did, because I was telling my sponsor like the night before, like, I was looking at my schedule for the next 6 weeks and I was like, there's literally no end in sight. Like, I cannot, if someone called me for a job today, like, I wouldn't even know what to tell them. That's how full my schedule was. It was like, look, call me back in a month and I'll know, maybe I'll have a better idea of where I can put you on a schedule. talking to my sponsor like the night before and kind of future tripping, I guess, like thinking like it's the busiest month of the year. It's not a great time to quit and all of this and all of that. And he just got me back into the present. Like, hey, is it really going to be the busiest month of your life? Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. You really don't know. So getting out of that anxiety drove me to quit. But again, I had a lot of work. I was working very long hours. I don't know how I did it. It was like truly a miracle, just literally sometimes 1 hour at a time, right? Like I was hanging blinds in this new development that had 14 new houses built in it. And of course, they were all 2 stories. And each house had 35 sets of blinds. So I had to go up and down these stairs all day long, carrying blinds and just tedious stuff, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but if you have been through like the first 2 weeks of withdrawal from kratom, you know how hard that is. So that's the type of stuff that I was doing, and it was really difficult. But basically, any energy that I had was focused on the work that I had to get the jobs done that I had started. Like I had commitments that I had made. I had to keep my customers happy. And then I'd come home and I'd lay on the couch. My dog would lay right next to me. My kids would check on me. And yeah, of course, the first 4 days were absolutely just misery and hell. The next 26 days after that were no walk in the park. Like I had no energy. It was no energy, no motivation. I was doing things differently, different than I had ever done them before. I was relying heavily on energy drinks and caffeine, but it seemed to do absolutely nothing for me. And yeah, it was hard. Like I did not manage well, but I got through it. I was surrendered to something bigger than myself. And I just trusted that it would get better. That's all that I had. And I had one meeting a week that I could go to, my 12-step recovery meeting, because I didn't know about all these other amazing virtual kratom support groups. But I looked forward to that one night a week, like so much. Even though I was the only one in the room that knew what kratom was, it still just gave me so much hope and so much strength to just open up and be vulnerable with other guys and to be able to get their support, get their encouragement. And they're like, hey, you're doing a great job, man. You're doing it. You're really doing it. And yeah, that was, I guess, the first 30 days for me.
It sounds like you had so much support from your wife and even your kids and your sponsor. And you definitely mentioned you're a Christian. So I'm sure you were definitely praying and talking to God a lot through all of that as well. Can you share? I know you shared some already, but some strategies or tools or even habits that kind of helped you manage those early days?
Yeah, I think the 12-step stuff is like probably the best tool that I've had. Like my sponsor is an AA sponsor, which like I found him in like my church's group. Like we were doing the 12 steps out of the big book. He told me to read page 86 through 88 every morning and make sure that I start my day on my knees in prayer and just thanking him for the day of sobriety that I've had, and then just praying and asking for one more day of sobriety. I feel like staying in the present is like the biggest tool, that he taught me, not worrying so much about tomorrow's problems because really all that I can focus on right now is today. And like I'm a pretty anxious person. I didn't realize it until I got off of kratom because I was self-medicating but I can get really caught up in the, oh no, what if this doesn't work out? What happens if this customer calls me back, but I'm too busy to do anything about it? I can get really anxious worrying about stuff like that. But my sponsor was just like, look, all you can worry about is, your problems for today. Like you can't get so caught up in the future or even the past. And so just trying to stay in the present was super helpful. And going to my weekly meeting because that's all that I had. But like nowadays, I do a lot more than that. I have, again, like you mentioned it, the There Is a Way Out organization, the Kratom Recovery group. Just connecting with other Kratom addicts is so helpful. Like being able to talk through the struggles that I'm going through, being able to relate with somebody on a very unique level, like that's huge. And that's why I love this group that we're a part of and There Is a Way Out, because I could relate with my sponsor being an addict, but again, he's more like an alcoholic. He did all sorts of different things that were relatable, but they weren't kratom. And then also, I did a lot of therapy. My sponsor was like really big into, hey, he did a lot of therapy, so it led me to get into it as well, which I never like really did therapy except like early on in my marriage when my wife and I were like struggling, but it was like, I'm going to do therapy to save my marriage. It wasn't like one of those things that I normally would gravitate to, but I was like, maybe there's something in this. Maybe I need to learn a little bit about my emotions, learn a bit about my past, my feelings, and all that kind of stuff, like how to process my feelings in a healthy way. So talking with a therapist was super helpful. Yeah, and again, like I have a greater purpose. I go to church and like finding my relationship with God or my higher power, like what that really is in recovery. And that's a foundation. That's really all that I have these days. Like I have my faith. I don't have, when I lack motivation at work nowadays, like I don't have a substance that I can turn to just get things turned up and turned on. So what I've got left is I've got my wife, like I'll get her on the phone, I'll talk to her, and we'll find ways to be grateful for what we have, grateful for the energy that I have because I do have energy, but I don't necessarily have a motivation to do what I'm doing at work all the time. So just finding ways to be grateful for what it is that I have because I really do. I have a lot. Like so yeah, I think gratitude is absolutely one of like the biggest tools that has helped me along the way.
I love gratitude. It's probably one of my number one too. And it sounds like really a beautiful story, Stuart, of how you became sober and how you're dealing with everything now. And I love that you continue to mention your wife as just a huge support system. And I could imagine doing things like however many flights of buildings and you're hanging blinds and all these apartments. I could see how even now today, like that would get tedious and you're still trying to be grateful for those things. Yeah. Can you share like maybe what you have some accomplishments, like what life looks like for you today and maybe some things that you've accomplished along the way?
Yeah. So one thing that I love about, I guess, my recovery nowadays, I just feel really connected to people. I get to connect to not only like kratom addicts, but just, I guess, just people. I've reached out to old friends and stuff like that, guys that I haven't talked to in a long time. And it's just really powerful to be able to connect to people. I host at the There Is a Way Out like group. And it's really great just to be there for people who are struggling in a way that like I can fully relate with, just to be able to offer a little bit of hope. Hey, it's okay. I've been there. You're going to get it. The things that you're doing, you're here in this room. That's a great first step. So I really enjoy doing things like that and just getting out of that isolation. Naturally, I just want to isolate as a person, but recognizing that's not healthy for a guy like me. So just staying connected with people. I think that was the question of, oh yeah, some accomplishments. One thing that I'm like really excited about is that after taking a very long break from running, is that like I'm actually back into running again. I think that's something that I was waiting for a long time and I would kind of have little goes at it when I was using, but I would always like, I wouldn't be able to recover. Like my lower legs and my calves and stuff like that, like I would get injured. Like I'd get up in mileage a little bit and then I'd have a huge setback. So I feel like that's a huge accomplishment today to be able to say running is now a part of my life again. I'm able to go out and do something that I've always loved doing that I wasn't able to do for a long time. I just finished soccer season, coaching my 6-year-old in soccer. That was a really great experience, something that I was nervous about and I would have been really afraid to do before like getting sober. But oh, it was really great. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, today I'm just happier than I've ever been before. My wife and I are happier than we've ever been in our marriage. We feel very fulfilled, feel very grateful. And for the most part, like I am able to just live a surrendered life and not like trying to fight the natural flow of things. Again, still trying to figure things out as far as like my motivation and energy go. I use this stuff for so long, right? I'm at work doing things I don't want to do. And I'm like, where can I find motivation to do this? And I'm still having to try and figure that out. And I usually figure that out when I make a call to my wife or make a call to somebody else. But the reality is maybe I'm not super happy with the job that I'm doing. And I've put a lot of thought into that recently. And so I am putting myself out there trying to make a career shift. I am going to be doing like an EMT course in December so that I can get my EMT again, which I've had before. I never did anything with it, but I've had it before. And so I'm going to get EMT and I'm going to be interviewing at fire departments in my local area and stuff like that. And just to be at a place where I'm I'm willing to do stuff like that, even though I don't know what the outcome's going to be. Like, I hope that the outcome is I get to be a firefighter. I hope that it leads to something amazing and fulfilling where I can be happy in my career and I'm not like lacking motivation to hang blinds on a window or whatever else. I don't know if that's where it's going to lead, but I'm putting myself out there. Like, I'm no longer sitting in fear. Like, I'm trusting that as long as I put myself out there and put one foot in front of the other, that it's going to work out.
That's awesome, Stuart. I love that you're starting to step into some uncomfortable territory. And yeah, I think that's where our journey really gets beautiful and kind of seeking out because you're probably comfortable doing this. You've been doing it forever. Sounds like you're ready for a new life, something different. But yeah, it sounds like you're an amazing dad. Tried soccer coaching for your kids, which is awesome, and getting back into running and stuff. I have a couple fun questions for you. Maybe what would a perfect day look like for you if you could do anything that day?
Okay. Okay. Something that I really miss about living in Hawaii, because I went to college out there, was waking up and having like perfectly calm waters, perfectly clear, and being able to take my little boat out offshore like a mile or somewhere in the outer reefs where it wasn't too deep, where I could get out there and I could just do spearfishing. And even when I lived out there, those days didn't happen very often because you've got to have the perfect weather conditions, right? Like you need the calm seas and then you need the clear waters. And those are some days that I really miss. Like I love being out in the ocean, just free diving and then spearfishing. So I think if I could have a day like that here in the near future, that would be amazing.
That sounds really peaceful. Sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah, that does sound like a perfect day for you. I'm not a fisherman, but that sounds like a perfect day. It definitely. Here's another one. What's the most unforgettable concert or live show you've ever been to?
Okay, so I will have to go with a recent concert. It was Phil Wickham and Brandon Lake's Summer Nights Worship Tour. It was actually my very first like worship concert, but like one of the things that really got me through early withdrawals was just like blasting Christian rock, like Brandon Lake and stuff like that. Like I had to have my focus on like Christ early on in my recovery, like the first 30 days. And having that music on in my ears, like at all times when I was in the mundane tasks of hanging blinds or doing handyman work, was like literally what kept me going. And so this past, I think it was in July, yeah, the end of July, we we got to go to that concert and it was just amazing. There were like, I don't know how big like a basketball arena is, but there's where like the Phoenix Suns play. I think there's 20,000 people. And then there's a stage down there and Phil Wickham and Brandon Lake are just like leading us in worship, singing praises to Jesus. Like you're looking around, like not a person is sitting down. Everybody's hands are up in the air. And it was just like really great moment. It was really powerful. And the music was just so good. Like their voices are like angels. So it was my first experience with that. and it won't be my last. I really loved it. Yeah, that would be the best concert or live show I've ever been to.
Thanks for sharing that with us. Yeah, it sounds like everybody being together, worshiping together is a pretty powerful experience. I could only imagine. Yeah, I could only imagine how beautiful that was for you, especially being sober and getting to experience that. So, what would be one piece of advice you'd offer somebody who's thinking about quitting kratom?
Oh, I guess just do whatever it takes. Just try and figure out what the next right thing is. Even if it's a baby step, take a step in the right direction. I didn't realize how bad, like how much I was like sleepwalking through life when I was on kratom. Something about taking kratom, like it really just lies to you. And I didn't realize how like shut off and I guess dead to the world around me that I was when I was in it until I finally got off of it. So it's one of those things that you gotta give it a shot. You got to experience it before you like really understand it. And it's just worth it. Whatever you gotta give up, whatever you gotta sacrifice to get free from the addiction of kratom, it is totally worth it. It's, yeah, seek a greater purpose in life, right? Waking up every morning and taking kratom, that was my life. That's what I did. That's what got me out of bed. I didn't have a lot of purpose in that other than get my body moving so I could get to work and then pay the bills. And it was just repeated process. It eventually gets very old if that's the life that you're living. And I would hope that other people wouldn't have to wait 10 years to realize that. For me, that's how long it took. Today is the day to make a change. I love the quote in the music, man. It says, if you stack up enough tomorrows, then what you'll end up with is a lot of empty yesterdays. And that's totally true. Like it's all about today. That's what we have. Today we can make a change. We can figure out what the next right action is in our lives. That might simply be reaching out to a friend or researching a kratom support meeting online. There's lots of baby steps that we can take. And I encourage anybody who's still struggling with kratom addiction to make that next step because my life is so beautiful now that I'm off of kratom. Like it is so much better than what it used to be. Still trying to figure things out, but I will take my life today any day over what it used to be a year ago. Yeah.
I agree with that. That's beautiful, Stuart. Definitely like just coming to life again, but feels like we were dead. And then we finally come back to life with feelings and living our life with purpose. And so I love that advice that you just shared with everybody. Is there anything else that you maybe didn't get to share or something on your mind or your heart before we wrap up?
I think I've talked enough, Natalie. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming, Stuart. Thank you for sharing your story with us. And yeah, we look forward to continuing to see how your journey goes, Stuart. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.